Okay, finally got around to doing another one of these. New microphone setup, new camera setup, new note setup. I know, crazy. So I don't want this to go 30 minutes and then it also just have like audio that's fucked up anymore, because I'm like, it's about convenience. I don't want to do high quality, but it has to be easy at least. It can't be low quality and difficult. Otherwise it's like, sucks for everybody, right? So today, talking about, I didn't damage this, did I? Surely not. This Is Why, Paramore's fifth studio album. My bad. Nearly forgot about Riot for a second there. Wouldn't want to do that. It's a good album. So This Is Why, the fifth studio album from the trio rockers of Paramore. So this is the first album I actually ever fully listened to, and how I got into Paramore about halfway through 2023 or whenever this released. And it's just, I don't know. I first heard about it from the Needle Drop when he was talking about some acts that, had some good rock albums that had come out recently. And I thought, he said that they were opening for Taylor Swift. I'm like, oh, Taylor Swift, rock artist. And he said the album was a bit experimental, a bit new wavy. And I thought, that doesn't really sound like Taylor Swift. Wonder what they're like. And I saw them and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. This is going to be like, some sort of indie, brand out of the UK or something, because I saw Hayley's red hair and I thought, oh, yeah, English. These guys look English. I saw this photo and I'm like, they look English. Like, something like the Linda Lindas, or I don't know if the Linda Lindas are English, but like Wet Leg, something like that. I was expecting some more sort of indie rock vibes, and I listened to it and I was, damn, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. It's actually really good. And at first I was like, didn't know what to make of it. I'm like, because I went in with this other idea. I'm like, what the hell why is Taylor Swift want to do this with Paramore? Like, it didn't make sense. I didn't know that Hayley and Taylor were friends until later, but at the time I was a bit confused. This doesn't really seem something up Taylor Swift's fan base, and then I started listening to the album track a bit more, and I'm like, okay, I like these. And eventually, later in the year, I'm like, look, I can't just keep listening to This Is Why. I think I tried to listen to Riot, and I'm like, this is completely different. And that's true. A lot of their albums, especially their first three albums, are very different. Especially, holy shit, actually, I forgot about this. So you had, All We Know Is Fooling, Riot, Brand New Eyes, Self-Titled, After Laughter. This is their sixth studio. Oh my God, I forgot about the Self-Titled. Oh, okay, never mind. Forgive me. Sixth studio album. So if you listen to their previous works, so I think especially you start to hear the influences of them, sort of experimenting a bit more with an alternative sound on something like the Self-Titled, but then especially in After Laughter, something completely different. Then followed up by This Is Why, again, something also completely different. So it seems that Paramore at this stage is willing and able to successfully pull off risks, or at least take a chance on doing something different. And I think this album is a great example of that and a great result of it. And it made me go back and listen to a lot of Paramore's classics, which at the time I didn't know were songs from Paramore. I didn't know who Paramore was. I knew the songs, but I hadn't made the connection, and I wasn't really familiar with Paramore yet. And I think now, after appreciating all of Paramore's discography, I could say that, man, they really have some hits, and they have some good ass range as well. So, you could maybe, if you're if you're more into the emo stuff, or if you're into the the metalcore stuff, or a bit of just classic rock, or a bit of the punk rock, or the pop, or the alt. They got a bit of everything here for somebody. I'd be surprised if you can't find a single Paramore song that you don't like. At least one, even if it is just Misery Business or something like that. So back into talking about this album. So this album, I think, really great. I relate to a lot of the songs on it. Look, I find this album really relatable. I love some of the sounds on this album. I love the work from the three of them, especially. I love Hayley's vocals on this. Normally in a lot of Paramore albums, sometimes it can kind of be like, oh, this is the song where Hayley sings in a really high-pitched voice and it's really high. And I don't mind that, but it is a bit repetitive sometimes. You know, you look at something like maybe Linkin Park with Chester Bennington, like some of their earlier songs, it's just like Chester sings high, it stays high. Whereas this, you get different voices, different effects, going high, low, talking, whispering, singing. Like you get really to appreciate the full range of her vocal capabilities, which you might not be able to find in maybe some of the other earlier work. So that's one reason why this is really great. I wrote some notes, so maybe we can go a little bit through track by track. So firstly, the opening, This Is Why, catchy song. This Is Why is a catchy song. It's a great opener for the album. I think it's probably the most accessible song on the album too. I think I could almost see this being on something like After Laughter, the previous album, and maybe sort of kind of bridges the gap over a bit successfully from something like After Laughter into This Is Why. Really also sets up kind of what you could expect on some of the vocals on the tracks, what the guitar work is going to be like, which I'll get to a bit more later, but the guitar work on this album is really great. Yeah, it's just a really dancey, catchy, vibey sort of song, and I think it's a great way to start the album. The thing is though, going from something like This Is Why into The News, which is like, This Is Why is like kind of like softer listening, easier, like maybe if you're more familiar with Paramore's older stuff, what you're expecting. The News is like, okay, we gave you, this is why we brought you into it, you know, we held your hand a little bit. The News comment was like, okay, this is the album. It's like this, fucking hold on to it, figure it out, you know, you just gotta like, you gotta go into it head first, dive into it, accept that this is gonna be the sound of the album, and if you can do that, you have a great time. The News, I think, a really sort of thought-provoking song about how we maybe consume media and how we view activism and how sort of maybe as an individual we sort of push things out of our minds to just sort of maintain a clear consciousness and make it easier for our day-to-day living, because we don't actually risk anything to help people, but we also don't want to feel guilty about that. So we just sort of, you know, look at consuming the media as sort of like entertainment, and then when we're done with it, we're done with it. And like when we're done with it, we want to imagine that the problem's not a problem anymore, but it still is, even if you're not aware of it. So we kind of go back and forth between, you know, sort of activism and performatism, and a lot of that stuff is brought up on the album itself. So I don't need to talk about it too much. You can just give it a listen and it sounds great. I think, what else I got in there? Really catchy chorus. Does convey a sense of anxiety as well, I think, of not only of being overwhelmed by news media and what's going on in the world, but also maybe guilt you might have with that. Sort of the feeling is a very anxious sort of song, but in a good way. And I think that's a good message that maybe in today that we should, you know, try to analyze more. Maybe people should sing about, you know, consume less, do more, you know. Don't spend so much time worrying about stuff. See what you can actually do good and make a change in. Turn off the news a bit, you know. Then followed up by Running Out of Time. Really groovy song. I think this is probably where you really start to feel those sort of new wave influences start to come into the album a bit. Really like Hayley's vocals on this. I think in a lot of the tracks, in the bridges or in the hooks, she has some really interesting vocal work going into a chorus. Zach on the drums, really good here too. Of course, I think Taylor's got some really iconic guitar work going on throughout this album, but sort of in the beginning songs, you know, it's sort of kind of like hinted at a bit, but I feel like as we get more into the album, that guitar work really starts to come out. In C'est Comme Ça? C'est Comme Kai? No, C'est Comme Ça. This track after Running Out of Time. Great 80s feel once again. Hayley, again, in the hooks and the bridges, really great on those vocals. I think it's got a good message. And it's another Na 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 song, you know. What we need more Na 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 songs ever since Blink and you know, Blink, Korn, Linkin Park. Some of these classic bands aren't really bringing out the Na 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 songs anymore. We need more Na 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 songs. Everyone loves a Na 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 song. If you don't like a Na 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 song, I'm Na 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 into you, man. So I think C'est Comme Ça, maybe a bit. I think around this point, I could see when I first listening, or if you're not maybe too big into it, it has a bit of a dip in a bit of the middle of the album, whereas some of the songs are a bit maybe not as memorable as something like This Is Why and The News in the opening, which are really hard-hitting songs, but still really good overall. Then followed up by, I think at this point, Big Man Little Dignity is just a ramp up towards the end in terms of the messages of the songs, the performances of the songs. Like, this album starts strong with This Is Why and The News, Audio, Time and Say Comme Ça, maybe a little bit of dip, and then Big Man Little Dignity is just perpetually, we're just going up and up and up the mountain at this point. It's a funny song about men who maybe cheat and lie and have small penises. So, sucks to be that guy. I think maybe this is about Chad. I don't know, Hayley's ex. But I think maybe a lot of people can relate to that, and it's funny. Maybe someone could say, you know, celebrate body positivity, but, you know, why can't we just, you know, maybe we can sing about, you know, small penises if the guy sucks, and if he doesn't suck, I don't know. I don't really care. I like the song. I think this song really also great example showing Hayley's range. I think on the outro though, this is like, when we go up and up, is like Taylor's performance on the guitar just gets better and better, and the outro of the song really has some great guitar work by Taylor. And I love the sort of, what I haven't spoken about yet much is the production on these songs. I think the experimental production is something that you can see, especially around self-titled. Even in as early as Riot, I think Paramore has always been sort of like, you know, they put a little bit of twist on the production with a bit of percussion or a bit of woodwind, or, you know, different effects used, and, you know, it's sort of just used in service a little bit on the early albums, but by After Laughter, and really even some of the songs on self-titled, 50-50 with self-titled, but After Laughter, full swing. And this, again, is like, the production on something like After Laughter is maybe really in your face, like it kind of slaps you across with a big, fast, in your face pop production, whereas this is like, and that's not bad, this is different. This is done in a different way. It's more like interwoven into every aspect of the song, and it's a bit more subtle at times when it needs to be, and a bit more in your face when it needs to be, and you might not even realize it, but it really just adds to the ambience of the whole album. And I think the production is something that really ties together this album well. So that was Big Man Little Dignity. Great song, funny song. You know, if your heart's broken, go give it a listen. You know, just let a bit of rage out. You know, I think that's one thing that Hayley Williams would always encourage, is put on a Paramore song and just rage it out a bit. You know, so, you know, just get those feelings out. If they're in you, get them out. You know, and it's okay. Don't hold them on, because you'll end up hurting yourself more than you end up hurting anyone else. After that, You First, on starting the second side of the record. The intro of the song is just, again, really great tone on the guitar from Taylor, and good bass tone as well, some good distortion on it. I might argue that maybe this is one of the weaker tracks of the album. I don't know. I think it depends what you're going for with this album. So sometimes you can go for things for the lyrics versus the sound. I think sonically, I like this song more than Big Man Little Dignity. I think lyrically, maybe Big Man Little Dignity has a bit more fun to play around in, but still really good. I think on this track, though, who really shines through is Zach on the drums. This is probably some of the best drumming out of all the tracks on the album. I think maybe Hayley and Taylor take a bit of a back step here. I don't know if intentionally or not, but just from my perception, I noticed the drumming on this track is really impactful, and I think the drumming throughout is really what sort of holds this song together. So, good song, I think, and just for the sound of it, I think is maybe less so the lyricism, the vocals, and this still good. I have to make it clear, I don't know if that song is, personally, because I like this album, I don't know if this has any bad songs in it. So, you know, take that as you will. I'm obviously biased in this situation. Next on to what track? Figure Eight. Now, I think the final 4 tracks of this album, I love all the other tracks, and they're all really sound good, but I think the last 4 tracks of this album, I relate to every single one. They sound great. Like, this album really is like really actually backloaded with the quality of the work. You know, you got the 2 songs up front, but the last 4 songs really great. So Figure Eight, sorry. Really relatable song about sometimes when you're in love or in relationships, or not even with people, just family or friends, you kind of find yourself when you're meeting new people and with people, you make the same mistakes a lot, and no matter how many times you make the mistakes, you seem to keep making them, even though you're meant to be learning it. And sometimes you even know you're making the same mistake and you're going to go through the same thing, and yet you still are doing it and you don't know why. You just feel like you're stuck on this roller coaster that goes round and round and round and round over and over and over. And you just want to get off, but for some reason you just can't, and it just keeps happening, and you're locked into it, and you just got to kind of make of it what you will. So I think Figure Eight, infinity, put the 8 on the side, infinity. Maybe there's a bit of a double entendre there with having like a figure like an 8, I don't know. Maybe a bit of a comment on like, perception of one's own body. I don't know, I wouldn't put it past Paramore. I think that could be something that you could see happening. But I think Figure Eight really ties well into some of the later songs on this track, but we'll come back to that, because next up after Figure Eight was Liar. I think Liar is possibly one of the saddest songs on the album. As to what the Liar is, I don't know, but again, Liar has this really sweet, like Hayley's really soft on the vocals at times, really sad. You can really feel it in her voice, even in the guitar tone is sad. The percussion is softer at times when it needs to be. I think if you're looking for a sad album, and it is, and the thing is, a difference to After Laughter, I think some of these songs are sad, or not, maybe not all positive, but they're more melancholy. I would say something like After Laughter is a sad album disguised as a happy energy, like pop album, versus this is like, a new wave sort of melancholy album. There's a bit of bittersweet with each thing. There's a beauty in some of the songs and the things they're singing about, but also a bit of a sadness as well, And I think Liar is an example of that, of a person who, maybe when they're in love can find themselves being hurt, or being, hurting others, and you find yourself in another stage of your life where, maybe you come across someone where you feel like you're in love again, but you deny those feelings to them, and you deny feelings to yourself as well. As is at least my interpretation is, and by doing so, you've become a liar to them, a liar to you. You're also scared of previous people maybe who've lied to you yourself. And the idea being that I think the message maybe to take away is, not just because something in the past has happened doesn't mean it has to happen in the future. Maybe a bit of like a contradiction to Figure Eight, of that we are stuck on this cycle, but it doesn't have to be the case. You can make it off. And sometimes, even if you are lying to someone, they know the truth, and you're lying more for your sake than theirs, and it's not, if you're willing to let yourself be truthful and honest with yourself, you'll maybe find that the other person is already ready to receive that for you, and you don't have to be afraid of opening up and being vulnerable about this, and it was only existing in your head. But you don't know until you do, and that's the scary part, I guess, which is, I think, what I would say that track is about. Then we go into Crave. I think Crave and Figure Eight kind of tie into each other well. All these last 4 tracks, the idea of being, even though in love, you might get hurt, or in life you might get hurt, in relationships or in experiences, we still sometimes always find ourselves coming back to the very things that hurt us last time again and again, just because we know that, there's that little inkling of hope that, you'll get it right eventually. You'll stick the landing, because it feels so good going into it sometimes, a bit like a drug, but then you might have a bit of an after effect or a hangover. And even though all the bullshit and all the mistakes that we keep making over and over again, and all the hurt that we go through, and all the pain that we subject ourselves and others to, I think the positive thing about humans is that, you're resilient. you know, you're persistent, you go through it again, and you want to go through it again. You know, you're not just doing it because you have to, but, you know, you try to maintain a positive, you know, there'll be times when, you know, you don't, and, you know, you dip back down into, you know, bad times, hard times, some might say. But, you know, if you make it out of that, you know, you still come around in the end. A lot of people do, at least I do. You know, I really, I think Crave might be one of my favorite. I think Crave and Lie might be my favorite songs of the album. And man, more about the. I've been talking about the themes of the song so much, I forgot to even mention the crazy guitar tone and work on this album. It really feels like these last two tracks, Taylor really kicks up the guitar work to another notch, and the production gets really kicked up into another notch in these tracks. So I think Crave is one of those songs, it's like, oh, you're going to fall in love, you're going to get hurt, but you're going to want to fall in love again. And guess what? You're going to get hurt again, but you're going to keep doing it. And it's going to be highs of highs and lows of lows, but we just got to remember that we're doing it for those highs and those good feelings, and we'll always come back to that. And eventually one day out there, you know, we'll make the landing, and it'll have all been worth it. And what we were wanting and searching for this whole time was actually obtainable, and it wasn't just an imaginary thing. So I love that track. I think everyone should give Crave a try, you know, especially if you just want to hear some crazy guitar work. Finally, wrapping up, Thick Skull. A really relatable song. I think, me personally, like, I listen to this and I'm just like, fuck, that's me. This song's about me. This song is about me. This song's about me. This song's about my mom. This song's about people in my life. You know, everybody knows the person who maybe finds themselves, you know, attracted to a person who they think they can help, or they want to help people. They're going with the right intentions, but, you know, maybe you're a bit controlling, or you don't realize, you know, sometimes a wounded animal is dangerous, even though if it's hurt, it's, you know, it's panicked and it can't really control itself. And this is a song about that, basically, you know, people who are attracted to or drawn to people who maybe themselves, you know, are hurt a bit. And I personally can see that, you know, I see a person like, oh, you know, they've gone through some shit. I like them, I can relate to that, you know, maybe they can relate to me, that we can empathize a bit, you know, maybe we have some similarities, a bit of an overlap. But then you realize sometimes, like, oh, you know, like, you know, you go in with good intentions, but you realize you can't fix people, and you shouldn't try to fix people, you know. You can try to help people and offer people help, but you can't force anyone to do anything. And sometimes people who are in the position where you can maybe need some help, or you want to help, but, you know, they don't know always what's best or what's right for themselves, let alone you. And you can find yourself getting unfairly hurt, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I think maybe Haley and I differ a bit on, you know, she's lived a bit more of a life than me, and maybe have more reason to be upset at people. Maybe I'm a bit more optimistic in that sense in my naivete, but, you know, people are complicated. They're gonna hurt you, you're gonna hurt them. People start off honest and well-meaning, and things just get lost along the way, you know. And sometimes maybe you have to kind of check yourself a bit. Be like, okay, you know, I've been on this figure eight before, you know, I know what I'm getting into myself, what is my pattern, my behavior, and you get drawn to the situation and the person ends up hurting you, or you might end up, you know, doing more harm than good to you person by being a bit controlling, and you're like, fuck, you know, here I am again. I've caught red-handed in this spot again. So, Thick Skull, you know, how long is it going to take for, you know, the lesson to get through into your head that, you know, you find a person who can help you as much as you can help them, you know, who wants to help you as much as you want to help them, because love should be reciprocal and not transactional, or just one person servicing the other. No matter how much you want to, you know, you can't love someone into loving you. I saw that today, and I think that applies well to this song. Just to talk about it again, I think this song really great vocal performances and range by Haley. You know, in the beginning, the sounds of her voice and the instruments just kind of wash over you, and then it kicks into this nasty tone from Taylor. It really feels like Taylor's singing almost on this album through the guitar. Like, he's got his own verses and his own vocals on some of the instrumental bridges in it. The drumming also really, really tight and fast and technical by Zach. On the outro, Zach and Taylor just sort of really tying up the album well after Haley's delivered some incredible performances. You know, you get those high ranges up and also everywhere else in between on this album and on this track as well. So I think Thick Skull, probably maybe one of the sleeper, more underrated albums on the track. Obviously not the most, or at least not the least popular, but I think this is an album that's really worth listening through the entirety of front to beginning. You'll find something you like. It has variety, but also has a lot of similarities, and I hope to hear more chances taken by Paramore into the future when doing stuff like this, be it on the albums or the singles or the whatever they got in store, because an album like this only makes me more excited for what the future can hold for the band. And I know I'll be ready and I'll be waiting, and maybe it'll be good, maybe it's not, but you know, I think an album like this, reflective of what its content's about, you know, take a risk, take a chance, break out of old habits, start new journeys, find new people, reconnect with old people, tell those that you love them that love you, and you know, maybe cut off those who don't. But just, you know, what can I say? Listen to it. Listen to the album. Paramore, This Is Why. Listen to the album. You'll be singing it for days. This is why I don't leave the house. You say